Hey, morning, everybody. Welcome to The Sweat presented by DraftKings. I'm Emerson Lancia. You are Jesse Cofield. Your hair looks wonderful today.
Wow, thank you.
Coming up, we're going to take trips around the NHL, NBA. How about some Major League Baseball Hall of Fame ballots, some fake ones that don't count from our analysts?
Important to note, they do not count.
Yes, very important to note.
Yeah.
But first things first, NFL best bets. Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, show your handsome faces, please. All right, we're going to rip through all four games here. We'll start Jags-Chiefs. Jeff, I'm going to go with you because I trust you the most. What is your best bet from this game?
Thanks. Yeah, we settled this, that's for sure. Who's more trustworthy right before the show. Look, this is simple stuff, people. It's the Jags. It's always been the Jags. Look, you back Mahomes at home, and you know, since he's come into the league with the Chiefs, they have just a 12-15-1 record as home favorites since 2020. That record gets a lot worse when they're favored by over a touchdown. Underdogs in the playoffs since 2017. They're 40-25 now ATS after last week. Oh, and the Jaguars, Emerson, they have this coach. His name's Doug Peterson. 6-0 ATS as a playoff underdog. I think that the Jaguars' rushing attack is going to absolutely neutralize the Chiefs' pass rush. And really, what do they need to do? They just need to keep this game close for us. We're getting 9.5 points now. 9.5. I think the Jags are live. I think you should just take them on the money line, to be honest. But we're talking best bets. I'll say take them on the spread plus 9.5. Everything's pointing towards a Jags potential upset here.
Okay, currently 8.5 on the DK Sportsbook. That doesn't change.
8.5. Okay, it's been moving between 9.5 and 8.5.
It has been. And Pierce, you know, Jeff and I talked about this last night in the slate. Maybe the bye isn't such a good thing here because last year we saw both number one seeds lose after having a week off. And since number one seeds here, Pierce, have started to get buys, they cover the spreads just 34% of the time after their week off. So I know you want to look to the Jags for your best bet here.
You know, my heart wants the Jags to win, but the numbers I have in front of me say a different story than what Jeff is painting. And let me just, the obvious one is Andy Reid is 27-4 coming off a bye. That's just a hard, cold fact. I mean, there's so many stats that I can't even memorize them. I just have to read them off the page. Reid at home off the bye, 8-2 straight up. 6-2 straight up when he's favored by a touchdown or more over his career. Trevor Lawrence on the road in cold weather, 0-3, 1-2 against the spread. Patrick Mahomes, his numbers in the playoffs are pretty much amazing. In a divisional wild card round, he is 5-0 straight up, 4-1 against the spread. And they're not just covering in most of those games, and most of those games are covering by more than a touchdown. I mean, I could just sit here and read you number. Mahomes in December or later, straight up at home, 19-3. The numbers paint a pretty bleak picture for the Jaguars. Maybe they cover, but it's going to be very challenging for them to win this game straight up. I lean towards the team on the bye at home against, you know, Cinderella just kind of running out of the magic.
Right.
I take real offense to that cold weather stat. I think it was like 45 degrees in Jacksonville?
Yeah, it was the third coldest game in franchise history last week. Also, Trevor Lawrence, even after last week, 34-0, Pierce, in his collegiate and professional career on Saturday.
Yeah, and you saw how Doug Peterson reacted when a reporter.
Saturday, pal.
Yeah, you saw how Doug Peterson reacted when a reporter asked him that question. He was like, "Yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
Move
Listen,
along."
he doesn't want to jinx it. It's all good.
Next question.
Pierce had some great numbers, but as did I and Jeff.
All right. Let's move on to Eagles-Giants. Eagles favored by 7.5. Pierce, what do we think? Giants have covered the spread in 7 of their last 8 games, and this one's sitting at 7.5 here.
The Giants have, they haven't just been a good team against the spread. They are the best team against the spread this season, and historically, they're having one of the best against the spread seasons ever. They're 14-4 against the spread. They're playing a division rival. The offense is gelling later in the season. I don't think they get nearly enough credit from the sportsbook. I don't think they get nearly enough credit from the general public. We've talked about them and the Vikings, how they were kind of fraudulent, but the fact is they outperform expectations every single week. Now, maybe the Giants don't win this game, but against the spread, they've been great. Daniel Jones, a guy who we always underrate, we always overlook. And if you look at his ATS numbers on the road and as a road dog, they're pretty surprising. They're pretty 18-7 against the spread on the road. He's 27-5 against the spread as a dog, 17-5 as a road dog. But the best stat of all, when we look at against the spread, dogs on the road, the Giants are against the sorry, too many stats here. Against the spread, as an underdog in the last 20 years, the Giants have been the best team ever. The best. 11-2 against the spread as underdogs this season. You got to take them.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think? I'm pretty convinced by all these stats.
Yeah.
Am I confused?
I'm confused.
Am I confused or
Is
am I?
Marcel's coaching the Giants again? Is Bill Sims going to come in and play quarterback? I don't care about those stats. Look, you know what I care about?
This year they are 11-2 against the spread as a dog.
The Giants are such a good bet this week, why is this number stayed at plus 7.5 over a key number all week? I'll tell you why. It's because there's probably some sharp money coming in on the Eagles, and that's where I think you should go. Look, the Giants team, it's a great story. I think Daniel Jones doesn't get enough credit as well. What happened in the first meeting between these two teams in week 14 when everyone was available? The Giants got steamrolled. They allowed over 200 rush yards to the Eagles. You're talking about a team in the Eagles who is so vastly different than the Vikings. First in pass DVOA, first in sacks per game. Daniel Jones may not survive this game with the Eagles coming off a week of rest. Look, again, I mean, you held Daniel Jones to 169 yards. This is just a completely different matchup than what the Giants had going on last week. I think you also, again, really need to look at what's going on with the spread here. If everyone loves the Giants, I just don't know why this number hasn't dipped. It should have dipped, and it's not. And I think that's a pretty big, alarm signal that should be going off. I think the Eagles steamroll here. This is the one favorite I'm okay to get on. Everyone's doubting Jalen Hurts again. Everyone's talking about how Daniel Jones is perhaps the better quarterback. Oh, I don't think so. Eagles minus 7.5.
Okay, so Jeff, we'll stick to the two Saturday games here. Which one would you look at for your favorite prop bet?
Oh, I love this one. I mean, I called the Dalton Schultz touchdown last week. We're going right back to tight end position. Evan Ingram. The Chiefs have a real issue covering in the middle of the field, just like, the Cowboys' opponent last week did. So, they've allowed the nine passing touchdowns to tight ends this season, which is the fifth most in the league. Over the last 4 weeks, they have allowed passing touchdowns to Tegan Quarantino, Quentin Tarantino. A couple guys you just never heard of. Evan Ingram, multiple red zone targets in 3 of his last 7 games here. Again, I think you look at Ingram as like a multi-touchdown scorer. You can also look to go over his yardage prop. This was 48.5 last I looked. I really like the spot for him. I think he's going to be pivotal for the Jags this week.
Yeah, he wasn't great in their Week 10 matchup, but like we mentioned last night, in the 8 games since, he's been on this absolute tear. 44 receptions, more than 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. May just be the most important offensive player for the Jags in this game. He could easily win or lose this game for the Jags. What's your prop bet here on Saturday, Pierce?
I like going to that Jags game, but obviously I'm going to go to the other side. Oh. I love Jerick McKinnon bets across the board. Any prop that you have for Jerick McKinnon, go with the overs. I mentioned the other day, plus 9,000 to get Super Bowl MVP odds. Get in now on that. We know that Super Bowl MVP typically goes to the quarterback. The only way that someone is going to steal that away from him is if they have 2 big game-breaking plays. McKinnon has proven that he can do that this season. You look at his prop bets in this game coming up, his rushing total doesn't take much to get there. Now, we worry about the volume a little bit, but McKinnon has shown that he can get over that number in just one basic rush. He's got fresh legs. They've been saving him over the last couple weeks for this specific moment. And I think that the sportsbook is overlooking that. They're saying, oh, well, he hasn't been running the ball a lot lately over the last month. It's because they haven't needed him. And receiving-wise, the Jaguars allow the second most receptions to running backs, second most receiving yards to running backs. So take the over on his receiving yards, take the over on his rushing yards, take him to get into the end zone. Steve mentioned the other day that McKinnon's red zone usage is basically through the roof. Everything. Bet McKinnon across the board.
Okay. All right, guys, Bengals, Bills. This is going to be a hell of a good game.
Yeah.
Bills are favored by 5 right now. A lot of people saying this could be the upset game here. So in their last 3 home games, for the record, Buffalo, they struggled to put away the Patriots. They struggled to put away the Dolphins twice. And turnovers are becoming a serious issue for them. So in those 3 games, they gave away the football 7 times. Cincinnati probably not going to be as forgiving as the Patriots and the Dolphins were if that continues to happen. So, Jeff, what do you think? I mean, what's your bet in this one?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this game a lot. I think when it comes down to it, I just don't want to bet against Joe Burrow. I'm going to take the Bengals and the points here. I think that's the move. Bills are 2-5 ATS in their last 7 home games. They're 1-3-1 ATS in the last 5 home games versus a team with a winning record as well. It's just they just haven't really been covering at a solid rate this year, and I think part of it is they just a lot more breakdowns in the secondary. You saw that last week, and it's just. You made the point already. I mean, this isn't Skylar Thompson coming. This is Joe Burrow. And yeah, the O-line issues for the Bengals scare me a little bit. But, we talked about, the Giants being one of the best cover teams ever. What about this Bengals team? I mean, 8-1 ATS on the road over the last 9 games. This is just not a team that I want to fade. I think that this is a team that has legit Super Bowl aspirations. And I think they're in another league than the Giants. So I come back to that underdog stat as well. Underdogs in the playoffs, 40-25 ATS. If I'm on the fence about something, I'm just taking the points in the playoffs right now. I think the Bengals are going to play here.
Yeah, Pierce, that quick passing game of the Dolphins really did give the Bills trouble, and we can expect to see the Bengals execute a similar game plan here. So are you on the Bengals too?
I don't know if the Bengals really want to go with the quick passing game. We have seen them kind of struggle a little bit. And when they shifted to a quick passing game because their offensive line was struggling and didn't really have any receivers, I would rather see them to try to take some shots with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins stretching the field. But really the big problem with the Bills is they're just the Bills. They have not lived up to our expectations, and we should have really seen this coming. Josh Allen is making too many mistakes. They don't really have a running game to fall back on, and things can go sideways pretty quickly for them. And they've fortunately been able to dig out of a lot of holes, but I think this one's going to be a little tough. We kind of agree that +5 for the Bengals seems like the way to go. They cover spreads left and right. They are a really good against the spread team. Good teams win games, great teams cover. We say that tongue in cheek, but the reality is when you're covering spreads, that means if you're an underdog, you're exceeding expectations. And if you're a favorite and you're covering the spread, then you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And that's basically coming down to good coaching and execution. That's what has lifted up the Giants. The Lions have also been good over the last couple seasons. And those things, good coaching, execution, that'll travel. You go on the road and you execute, and the coaching have a good game plan. You not only can win those games, but you can win outright. And so I would take it a step further and look at the money line, +200 for the Bengals.
So the Bills opened as 6.5 point favorites. They were bet down as low as 3.5. So expect to see this move a little bit.
Well, speaking of 3.5, it's what the Cowboys are getting on the road in San Francisco. San Francisco team here, Pierce, that has won 11 in a row. Both these teams coming off blowout victories in the wild card round. So what is your favorite bet for Cowboys 49ers?
I'm going against the public. I'm going against basically everybody on the face of this earth, and I'm going to take the under. I don't understand completely I get it that Brock Purdy has looked really good and they're scoring points, and San Francisco's offense can be very dynamic. But in a lot of those matchups, I don't believe Purdy was really challenged that much. And we saw last week where Purdy kind of struggled at times. The passes weren't quite there. If you put a little bit of pressure on him, you put a decent defense up against him, you make him beat you and not allow him to basically play conservatively and just do more game managing. I think he's going to make mistakes. And on the other side, Dak Prescott has also proven that he can make plenty of mistakes as well. I just don't get it. You've got two really good defenses going up against each other, and the public loves the over. I know there's flashy, splashy players on both offenses, but these defenses are 1 and 2 in the league. The number 1 DVOA versus the number 2 DVOA, and the public loves the over. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm going to hammer the under.
All right, Jeff, I believe yesterday you mentioned you like the under as well. You kind of expect both defenses to outplay both offenses, similar to their matchup in the playoffs last year in the wild card round.
This is, if I'm betting a total, the under here is definitely a play. I also think you can just take the Cowboys at 3.5, though. It's a key number. Again, Dallas is just, they've been Jekyll and Hyde, late in the season. But, when they're at their peak, I mean, they are very good. Pierce mentioned their numbers against the run. This is a tough spot for a team on San Francisco that wants to protect a rookie quarterback. You're also going to see an actual pass rush, against Brock Purdy, who's been holding onto the ball, trying to make plays with his feet. Bad things happen when you go against good pass rushers. The Cowboys, 19-7 ATS in their last 26 games versus an NFC opponent. Like I said, you're getting through a key number at +3.5. I just, again, like the Cowboys, it definitely it could blow up this week, and maybe like that team from like the week 15 or like week 18 we saw shows up. I don't think so. I think that they're going to force Brock Purdy into some bad situations. I think this game's going to be close. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think 19-17, 2017 sounds about right.
All right, guys, really quick here. Favorite player prop for Sunday? Jeff, where are you going?
Under 65.5 rushing yards for Christian McCaffrey. Top 3 rush DVOA defense for Dallas. And also with Elijah Mitchell in the lineup, CMC averaging under 60 yards rushing per game.
Pierce, where are you going?
Let's build on the analysis from the last game. Brock Purdy to throw an interception. He's going to face a tough defense, a good pass rush. Last year, the Cowboys were number 1 in interceptions. This year, they're number 8 under Dan Quinn. Brock Purdy's going to be in for a long day.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the help as always. Coming up, we've sent out our Baseball Hall of Fame ballots to 8 of our analysts here to see which guys they think are deserving of being enshrined in Cooperstown, which the real class will be announced on Tuesday. So we'll reveal 3 of those ballots coming up.
3 of those fake ballots coming up. But first, a member of the Broadcasting Hall of Fame joins us in studio. That is coming up next.
Mike Golick Sr. in the flesh, in studio. Welcome to our humble abode. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it's so odd the last few years, everybody has to put a senior after my name because my son has infiltrated this business as well.
It's true, especially both of you now with this company. Like,
I know.
You know, your son has no more hair, and you've got a nice full head of it.
And I remind him of that all the time.
Let's remind people watching right now, we have 8 teams left standing. The Bucks are not one of them. So here we go again with Tom Brady. I know you've said multiple times in our interviews here throughout the season you believe this was going to be his last year in the league. So he's entering free agency again. What will be his age 46 season here? If he decides to keep playing, who do you think wins the Brady sweepstakes?
Man, I almost have to believe he's going to keep playing. And I'll continue to be wrong on that situation. It's been amazing. I find it hard to believe it'll be with Tampa Bay. They've pushed so much money going forward, on these players that you steal from Peter to pay Paul. Eventually that catches up with you. So I'm trying to think of what kind of team they could have. Everybody's talking about the Raiders.
Yeah.
Are you going
They're the odds-on favorite there on the DK Sportsbook.
But are you going to the AFC West where Mahomes is, where Herbert is? Already, and Russell Wilson had a horrible year, but are you going to jump into that division? I hear people talking about the Jets.
Yeah, because his family in New York.
Exactly. Yep. So, I guess I would probably lean toward the Raiders as well. You have Devontae Adams there, Josh Jacobs, who had a monster year when they didn't pick up his option. So, it's a wild thing, but I don't think he's going back to Tampa Bay, and I do think he is going to keep playing.
I think he wants to go wherever they have the best offensive
exactly right.
line, right?
Yes.
That's all he wants. I mean, the guy doesn't want to be touched anymore. Not that any quarterback wants.
Yeah, but when you're going to be 46, getting touched hurts a lot more.
Exactly. So the Cowboys here and 49ers. So the 49ers are one of the teams that are rumored for Tom Brady to go back to his childhood home and all that stuff. But let's talk about this weekend. We got the Cowboys and 49ers. Those are the only 2 teams that enjoyed blowout victories in the wild card round. They're going to meet Sunday night, San Francisco. You're going to be on the call of this game here. So I know you can't make exact game picks, but what kind of chance would you give Dallas to go in there and pull off the upset here?
I think San Francisco is the most complete team left.
Yes.
They and Philadelphia. And you look at, it's the best statistical offense in the NFL. I mean defense, best statistical defense. Look on offense. They get Elijah Mitchell back to go with Christian McCaffrey. Brandon Ayuk is having a career year. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Purdy just dumping it around, not turning the ball over in that Kyle Shanahan offense. It's stunning to me. Yeah. They have so much talent, and I know the Dallas defense is really good, but that to me is a very tall order to slow down this offense that has so many weapons. Think about Purdy and the pre-snap read. He's got all those weapons, and if he can get a good pre-snap read, that's going to be up to Dallas to kind of really disguise that. Because if he can get a good pre-snap read, he's going to know where he basically wants to go with the ball, and to all the bevy of talent and weapons he has on that offense. I think it's going to be a tough ask. I think that San Francisco defense is going to get after Dak, and they got to slow down Pollard, who's been having a monster year.
Yeah.
But I think overall San Fran is a better team here.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it depends too, Mike, and let me know if you agree, which Dak Prescott's going to show up. Is it going to be the one who was just like pinpoint passes, just tearing up Tampa Bay, or is it going to be the guy who threw 15 interceptions in just 12 games, showing up against that pass defense that has a league best 20 picks?
So it's always interesting of the different ways that football has evolved over the years. But one thing that will never change from the first time they snapped the football to the last time a football will ever be snapped, turnovers rule.
Yeah, man.
Don't turn the ball over, right? Because we worry about that with Josh Allen and doing a red zone interception the way he's been doing some. Yep. He's throwing touchdowns, defense playing well, but every now and then throws a red zone interception. Dak every now and then is turning that ball over, and it's been every now more than every then with the 15 interceptions you talk about. You can't give a team, in this case like San Francisco, extra possessions. They're going to be too good on offense. That'll put too much strain on your defense, so the defense has come up big for them. That's obviously the question for Dak. Can he hurt you with his legs? Can he get to CeeDee Lamb? Schultz gets used a lot at tight end. I think Pollard, they finally realized Pollard needs to be the bigger guy than Zeke, because Pollard's a touchdown waiting to happen every time he touches the ball. But, watch out for Nick Bosa.
Yeah, for sure, man.
He can screw up an offense pretty quickly.
And another quick follow-up here, because I know you've been super high on the 49ers, especially since they have acquired Christian McCaffrey, which they've now reeled off 11 straight wins. Would they still be your Super Bowl pick right now, plus 450 to win it all?
As a former Philadelphia Eagle, it is tough for me to say. Yeah, I probably still lean to San Francisco making it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and like Cowboys-Niners, too, the winner of that one's going to get either your former team in the Eagles or the Giants here.
Wow.
Dude, the Philly sweeping this NFC East rivalry in the regular season, but New York is a confident team right now, Mike. What will be the deciding factor in this game?
Well, I mean, I do think overall Philly is the better team. So again, for the Giants, play a clean game, right? The one thing about Daniel Jones, and I had my reservations about Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones made himself some money. Daniel Jones is going to make probably $35 million
Whether it's with
a
the
year.
Giants or somebody else, you're exactly right.
And I think it'll be with the Giants. You have a great running game with Saquon Barkley, which always works in the playoffs, and you have a really good defense. So a defense can keep you in games. A running game can help you control the clock, which you want to do. But again, I think Philly overall, offensively and defensively, team-wise, depth-wise, is a better team than the Giants. But what Brian Daboll has done with that team to turn them around this quickly has been fantastic. So the Giants obviously are definitely in this thing. I actually picked them to beat Minnesota last week. Thanks for making me look good on that. Because it's all about how we look, right? Not what really happens. It's all about our picks. But I do like Philly overall in this game.
Okay.
But man, I mean, talk about the arrow pointing up for the Giants going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And the Eagles around a touchdown favorite at home right now, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on the health of Jalen Hurts. Like if he's limited at all, I think anything is going to be possible in that game. Eagles are coming off that week of rest. You can say the same right now for the Chiefs. On the AFC side, they're going to be hosting Jacksonville, America's team. Yeah. And to say Trevor Lawrence's postseason debut was memorable would be an absolute understatement here. We're looking at the biggest total. We're looking at the biggest spread in this divisional round right now. How the hell did the Jags match the firepower of the Chiefs?
So the one thing that will help them is they now have the confidence that no matter what the score is, they can come back.
Yeah, it's true. Like, you can't count them out. Yeah. Like, I will not doubt Trevor Lawrence again after he threw 4 interceptions in the first half. I just won't.
And I highly doubt you'll see 5 turnovers in the first half.
Yeah,
again, the 4 interceptions and the fumble. So I'm sure it'll be a little cleaner of a game from this point of view. But as we've been talking about here, the better team is Kansas City.
Yes.
They have incredible firepower, so you have to score with them unless your defense can really slow them down. But offensively, again, Lawrence is passing well, but Etienne, after missing last year, running the ball extremely well as well to help, again, as I said, control the ball, because what does that do? It keeps Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. This isn't rocket science that we're talking about here of what you need to do to win. But I talked to Doug Peterson a couple of weeks ago, and I said, what's been the biggest difference? And he said the word trust. He said the trust, and listen, after last year's debacle with Urban Meyer,
man, yeah.
I mean, the players were looking for somebody to trust. And here you got a Super Bowl winning coach in Doug Peterson. They're buying into what he's selling. So another team like the Giants, where the arrow is really going up, but I don't know if it gets past this round.
Yeah, they started 4-8. They've ripped off 6
Yeah.
straight wins. It's really impressive what Doug Peterson has been doing in Jacksonville. Let's bring it home with Bengals-Bills here. Could be the best game of the weekend. I think arguably it's going to be the most emotional game of the weekend. Buffalo, huge home field advantage here. But man, Josh Allen and these Bills can't stop turning the football over. It's like they're trying to give these games away. How do you see this one playing out?
And that's the one thing that you can predict what you think's going to happen with players, right? X's and O's and all that kind of stuff. But you can't predict turnovers. You just can't do it. So you just have to kind of go on how you think the game's going to go, and if turnovers happen, that's what I said. From the beginning of football to the end of the football, turnovers are going to be the difference. And his turnovers have come, a lot of them in the red zone. I think 5 or so in the red zone.
Yeah, you nailed it.
That is an absolute killer when you can at least get 3, maybe 7 to get nothing and turn the ball over. For Cincinnati, though, I mean, listen, they lost their right guard, Alex Kappa, in week 18. La'el Collins, the right tackle, had been gone a couple weeks before. I called the game that they played against Baltimore. Jonah Williams had the dislocated kneecap, the left tackle. So 3 linemen and an already revamped
Burrow is
offense.
shaking right now after last year. He's still got PTSD being sacked every
But at
time.
least he's used to it. He was sacked 1.2 million times last year, 13 times in the first 2 games this year. But since one point of the season, never more than 2. So it had gotten better. The problem with Cincinnati is they have no running game. So let's also wait and see what the weather is.
Okay.
You know, if the weather is bad and you can pound the ball and run it and control, that's going to be really good for you. But Cincinnati doesn't really have the ability to do that. So it's got to be the short passes. And we know they'll take some shots over the top with Jamar Chase. So weather could be a factor in this one as well.
Bills 13-1 across their last 14 home playoff games. Again, there's a nice home field advantage there. But 27 giveaways this season.
Yeah.
Only the Colts and Texans gave the ball away a lot more. Hey, here's hoping we see a great division round like we did last year, where all 4 games were decided on the last play of the game.
Yeah. We waited till Monday night to we thought had the best game with Dallas and Tampa Bay, and it was direct.
Yeah, it was just an
awful.
absolute dud.
Yeah.
Mike, great having you in studio. We'll catch up with you next week, and then we're going to see you at the Super Bowl too, man.
That sounds good. I'm here looking for the catering.
All right, yeah, we got you. We'll take you to the kitchen right now. I have an announcement about an announcement. The latest MLB Hall of Fame class will be announced on Tuesday. Julian Edlow has joined us, by the way. We decided to ask some of our analysts, including Julian Edlow, to fill out their ballots that do not count. They are fake, not real. They're going to tell us who they voted in, if they were legit enough, actually, to vote dudes in. Steve Buchanan and Eric Halterman are also here. So we're going to rip through 3 of the ballots today. We have 3 of the analysts here.
Yeah, so let's start with Steve's ballot. Okay, so Manny Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Todd Helton, Scott Rowland, Billy Wagner, Francisco Rodriguez. Steve, what were the biggest factors for you?
Wow.
Here's the thing. Imagine you're a young lad and your father was nice enough to take you to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And you're looking around, you're looking at all these players, and you go, Dad, where are all these big boppers? Where are all the power hitters? This is what you told me about. Oh, I'm sorry, they're not in the Hall of Fame because everybody has to ride their high horse. Oh, they did PEDs. How do I care? During that time, that was the most entertaining aspect of baseball, was when all these guys were doing whatever they were doing and giving these outrageous power numbers and made baseball the best it was in the late 90s and early 2000s. I don't care about that. Let those guys in. Give me Alex Rodriguez. Give me Manny Ramirez. Give me Barry Bonds. Give me all of these guys to get into the Hall of Fame because they deserve to, because the numbers are still there. Even like Manny Ramirez, 411 on base percentage. That's the highest amongst anybody that's on the ballot at this point. Alex Rodriguez, a career wins above replacement at 117. Come on. These guys should be in the Hall of Fame. I don't care what happened with all that. Get those guys in, the big power hitters, and some of the other guys that should be there too as well. That's on my ballot. Some of the best closers, some of the best defensive guys. They should be in the Hall of Fame as well.
Hot damn. What do you think about that? What do you think about his ballot here, Jules? Because
What's your take on all that?
Go ahead.
Okay, my take is that I for the most part, agree with Steve. This is, you want the big names in there, and they're not there. It doesn't seem like you're going to a baseball Hall of Fame when guys like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens aren't there, guys that would have gotten in without their steroid use and whose numbers reflect, Roger Clemens was pitching against other guys on steroids. Barry Bonds was hitting off of guys with steroids. Just go with it and let them in. So I'm with Steve there. I did write in Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens on my ballot, and unfortunately our producers did not allow them. But it's my ballot, so I'm allowed to do that.
Okay, that's fair enough. Eric, what do you think?
It's weird for me to be like the more anti-PED guy because on most panels I don't think that I would be. But those guys, look, they made excellent points about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, who are not on this ballot.
Yep.
I think join the consensus of a lot of the analytically minded baseball analysts these days who draw a clear line between the guys who just were rumored to have done steroids before 2004, before league punishments came in, and the guys who actually failed tests and were punished. A-Rod and Manny Ramirez both failed 2 tests. They both had 2 PED suspensions. That's a lot for me. I think what's happening here is we're seeing a legitimate conversation that was had about Bonds and Clemens, who never failed league drug tests. I don't consider the steroids taken, presumably by those guys, to be all that different from guys who took sketchy but not banned nutritional supplements. I don't have a problem with those guys. I think they should be in. But for me, if you failed tests and were suspended twice, that's crossing a line. That's why I do feel fine, including guys like Andy Pettitte and Gary Sheffield, who have PED suspicions, but they don't have multiple PED suspensions like these two.
Interesting, because I do look at your ballot, and you voted for 10 dudes here, Eric, which is the max I believe you can vote for. Rowland, Helton, Jones, Wagner, Abreu, Sheffield, Beltran, Kent, Pettitte, Jimmy Rollins, and Andy Pettitte. No A-Rod, Manny. I mean, why again does Andy become the guy who escapes the PED stigma here?
Because, again, for him, it's just a stigma. I draw a very clear line between guys who failed tests after it was illegal to take these steroids within the league when there were league-mandated punishments. But rumors are not enough to keep a guy out.
Okay.
You could make other cases against guys like Pettitte. He is a pretty fringy candidate. And, yes, I'm the only, I guess, big haul guy here. I'm the only one who filled all 10 spots. But you know what? I'm fine slightly lowering the standards. It's a great honor for these guys to get in. If it brings a lot of joy to them and all their fans, I'm not going to dramatically expand the hall, but why not use all 10 spots? Especially my vote for Rollins there was just a bit of realism. There's always somebody who votes for a guy who probably shouldn't get in from their beloved local team. So I'll throw him in there, but it's an honor for guys like him to just be on the ballot. So I'd like to see them get over that 5% threshold needed to stick around, even though I don't think they'll actually get in.
It's the biggest factor overall, though, when you selected all 10 of these dudes. What was it?
Pretty much all of my thinking on the Hall of Fame is informed by Jay Jaffe, who writes for Fangraphs, wrote the Cooperstown Casebook, excellent book on the Hall of Fame. He invented JAWS, the Jaffe Adjusted WAR score, I think it is. It averages a player's peak WAR from his best 7 seasons and his career WAR, gives you a standard which you can match him up against other Hall of Famers. Although, interestingly, of my guys, only 2 of them, I believe, actually get there. Scott Rowland, he does get there with his defense, and that's what a WAR-based approach will show you, that some of these guys who don't have quite the counting numbers, Rowland still has excellent offensive numbers, but guys like him, when you look at the whole picture, they do get there. Todd Helton actually does still get there by that standard, even after adjusting for cores. That's something that a stat like WAR can do, is adjust for park factors. He actually still does get there. A number of these guys fall just short, but when you look at the whole picture, say throwing in Andrew Jones's defense or Bobby Abreu's on-base percentage, that sort of thing, there's a lot of the guys who get close enough when you look at it from that holistic angle that if you're a big haul guy like me, I think it makes sense to just use all 10 spots.
Steve, what's your takeaway from Eric's ballot? You a big haul guy, small haul guy? What's up?
I mean, Eric wants to extend the Hall of Fame by about 3 acres. Everybody gets in every year. If you make the ballot, you should be into the Hall of Fame. He does make some good points about some of these other guys, but like some of the guys that he has on here, like, come on, like Jimmy Rollins should not be in the Hall of Fame. Should he be maybe in the Phillies Hall of Fame? Fine, I could be down with that. But like in the National Hall of Fame, there's definitely some of these guys that should not be in there, especially over some of the guys that should be in there, like the PED guys. You know, Eric has his stance on, rumors and innuendo versus actual suspensions. That's fine. That's his ballot. But the way he's going, MLB better make another grant or something to extend that Hall of Fame. It's going to have to go to Cooperstown and all the surrounding towns by the rate he wants to put some of these guys in there.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Julian, let's move on to your ballot here.
Short
All
and
right.
sweet.
Short and sweet.
yeah,
A-Rod,
brother.
Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, Andy Pettitte. What's up? You're definitely a small haul guy.
If you juiced up and smashed homers in the 90s, you are in. That's my ballot.
Yeah, take that, Eric.
Look, I'm not going to rip Eric here because, like, Eric did what everybody's been doing. Like, this is the standard now for what a ballot is, and there's so many guys that are in that you look at some of the guys that are on the ballot, and it's like, oh, well, then they deserve it too. So, like, there's no problem with going that route. I would prefer just keeping it tight and keeping it to the guys that, you look at their name and you think that is a Hall of Famer. It's numbers based, of course, and I think longevity is a huge piece of it. So the 4 guys on mine, Andy Pettitte, A-Rod, Manny, and Sheffield, are guys that did damage for a long period of time. And as we mentioned off the top, I don't care if you did steroids or not because everybody was doing it during the time, and you're doing it against equal competition. Manny debuted in 93 for Cleveland. He last played in 2011. Those obviously weren't big seasons, but he had a very long prime of 30, 40, 50 home runs. Same thing with A-Rod. Sheffield, I did go through his numbers. He hit like 40 homer seasons for multiple teams for a long period of time. Florida, the Dodgers, the Yankees in there, and got going with the Brewers, obviously. And then with Pettitte, Pettitte made 26 starts for the Yankees in 1995. He made 30 starts for the Yankees in 2013. Longevity and producing throughout that time. He started basically a full season of starts in the postseason in his career. So yeah, I want longevity and big numbers and an extended prime.
All right, guys, we will continue unveiling our ballots here, y'all's ballots, tomorrow. Again, ones that don't count, but in our DraftKings Hall of Fame votes, you can see now after the 3 ballots that we unveiled today, you need 6 votes. You need 6 votes to get in out of the 8 ballots. So we'll see who we have on tomorrow, who they're deciding to vote in. All 3 of you, congratulations.
Yeah.
That was wonderful work.
Thank you for the honor of casting your
Everyone's
fake ballots.
getting in.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
According to Eric.
Of course. All right. Well, we have a
Good
large
payroll.
13-game NHL slate coming our way. Coming up next, we need the guys to break it down, tell us who to put in our DFS lineup, so they'll deliver the goods next.
Sounds great.
Welcome back to the Sweat. We have a massive, absolutely massive 13-game NHL slate on deck this evening, so we need to make sense of that. Let's bring in our NHL panel. We got NHL.com's Pete Jensen and RotoWire's Paul Bruno and AJ Scholes. Fellas, like I said, absolutely huge slate tonight. So who's going to be the very best DFS play? Pete, where are you going?
I'll start with Nikolai Ehlers. The Toronto Maple Leafs are allowing goals left and right, 4 goals allowed in each of their past 3 games. And Ehlers has been a beast since coming back from injury, 10 points in 7 games since the return with 19 shots on goal. It's a guy I've liked for years. They call him the Great Dane for a reason. He's the pride of Denmark, and he has deserved a bigger role, especially on the power play. It's good to see him out there on power play 1 with Coach Rick Bowness at the helm. So again, Ehlers is one of those many guys recently. We talk about Josh Norris. We talk about Evander Kane. Max Pacioretty could come back on Thursday. These are high impact players, but I feel like the ceiling for Ehlers, not that many people are talking about him. It's as high as anybody's right now.
All right, AJ, Pete's going with a winger. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little off the board here and go Travis Konechny of the Flyers tonight at 8,300. It's a home matchup against the Chicago Blackhawks, who are just 3-11-2 on the road this season. Absolutely terrible from the Blackhawks there. Konechny, for his part, 11 points in 11 of his last 13 games, including 12 goals. I think it's a good matchup for a top-end player who's flying under the radar because the Flyers themselves aren't exactly the best team this year, but they've got a good matchup tonight. They're playing at home, and so I think it's a good opportunity to use some of their guys.
All right, Paul, on this huge slate, who is the very best DFS play?
You know what? On the big slate, you don't take too many big swings. The biggest swing I'm going to project tonight is Alex Ovechkin, $9,000 against Arizona. He's got reinforcements around him now. I was talking to Pete offline before the set today, and Washington looks like a stronger lineup because they got 3 veterans back in the mix, and that's only going to make Ovechkin's life a lot easier, and I think you're going to see that impact starting tonight against the lowly Arizona club that's leaking a lot of goals. If you want to save some money, that should be pivoting you toward Alex Barkov and Sebastian Aho, 2 number 1 centers who come in at around $6,500. Very palatable price tags on a big slate like this that affords you to spread some of the dollars around if you want to go that route. They both have very good matchups ahead of them, particularly Barkov against Montreal.
All right, Paul, do you take a big swing back on the blue line here? You've got 6 guys that'll cost you at least $7,100.
No, I'm going a tier below that because of what I just said. There's too many good players, too many good options out there. You don't need to go great options, so I'm going a little lower than that. Consider Charlie McAvoy, $5,600 as the PP quarterback for Boston. They're just beating everybody, and they're going to put another W in that column against the Rangers, and he'll be a big role there. And then Justin Falk for St. Louis has had a very nice year facing Nashville. Same profile, $5,500 for a guy who's got a cannon of a shot, which will be featured on their top power play. And a third option, Miro Heiskanen against Los Angeles Kings. This is a team that's having trouble keeping the puck out of their net. Dallas, of course, a lot of firepower there, and Heiskanen is their go-to PP quarterback as well.
AJ, what's the move for defensemen here?
Well, in the month of January, the best power play in the league has actually been the LA Kings. And Drew Doughty has been logging the most minutes on the team with that number 1 unit. He's got 6 points in 6 games this month and comes in at a really discounted 4,600 price tag. Paul mentioned Dallas is a tough matchup. That's certainly true, but the Kings have been playing pretty decent hockey as well throughout the year. So I think you take advantage of this power play unit that's rolling and get Drew Doughty in your lineup less than 5K. That's almost a steal.
Okay, Pete, how high up on the salary board are you going to go here tonight on the blue line?
I definitely echo what Paul said about Charlie McAvoy, 27 points in 31 games this season. I feel like he's an outside Norris Trophy candidate that people should look out for. Seth Jones is on fire. He's got back-to-back 3-point games. And then I also am really high on Mo Sider. He's a buy low candidate in season-long leagues. He's been heating up a little bit lately, but not so much bursting onto the scene like when last year he won the Calder Trophy. But he's got 8 points in his past 10 games. Covers categories like shots on goal, especially blocked shots. Even if they lose against the Golden Knights, last time they played them, he had 4 blocked shots. So a very high floor there. He's back on power play 1. And the Red Wings are not a great team, but they have some garbage time value, especially with their top liners back intact with Raymond, Bertuzzi, and Larkin. So Seider is going to set the table for those guys tonight.
All right, which line or game are you looking to stack tonight? Or maybe like with such a big slate, are you more likely to stay away from a game or line stack here? What are you thinking, Paul?
Well, I'd be more inclined to stay away from the line stacks, but if you want to go that route, 2 games are where I would be focused on. Panthers visit to Montreal. They're a minus 250 favorite. Washington heading to Arizona, also lopsided favorites of minus 200. So if you were going to do a line stack, it would have to be featured around the big stars on both teams. I mentioned Barkov earlier. He comes in at $6,500, and then you got cheaper value on the wings. Reinhardt, $5,200, and Lundell at $3,700. These guys are going to get 16 or 17 minutes of ice time minimally, and maybe most of that together. So that's why that makes sense against the Habs team that's given up a lot of goals. And the narrative is very similar for Alex Ovechkin, centered by Dylan Strome and Nicholas Aube-Kubel on the wings. Strome is $4,300 out center. Aube-Kubel $3,500, while Ovechkin will cost you $9,000. So bring down your average cost. You can bring all 3 caps in, and hope they do their damage at even strength.
Pete, what's your strategy here?
I think if you're going to stack a team, stack one of the elite teams. I'm talking the Boston Bruins. You could still get a piece of David Pastrnak through his line mates, who are both really affordable. I think you could get both of them in there. Pavel Zacha just got a new contract and has been productive lately. And then David Krejci, really turning it on late as well and having a great return season to the NHL. And if you want to look at the Carolina Hurricane, and I mentioned McAvoy earlier for the Bruins too, so they're totally loaded, best team in the NHL bar none. Carolina Hurricanes, if you want to get a piece of Pacioretty, just make sure he's returning, but he's probably going to play with Sebastian Aho, who has 7 points in a 5-game point streak, and also maybe round out your lineup with a little Brett Pesce on the blue line, covers categories and chips in points along the way.
AJ, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think you can definitely hold off stacking on a big slate tonight. There's just so many options. But again, if you're going to do it, I think maybe there's some opportunity tonight to use some maybe non-traditional stack teams. I know Pete mentioned Boston and Carolina, but they've got somewhat harder matchups here. I like stacking the Flyers tonight, going up against the Blackhawks. They're the second biggest favorite on the slate tonight. Anaheim is leaking goals. They have been all season. You could maybe consider stacking the Columbus Blue Jackets, which isn't something that I think we've said at any point during the season. But they're minus 165 favorites on the DK Sportsbook. So I like to stack against bad teams rather than specifically targeting good teams on specific nights. So for me, there's a couple of maybe undervalued teams that you could consider stacking.
Gentlemen, fantastic job. Thank you so much for the help this morning. Good seeing all 3 of you from a 13-game NHL slate to just a handful around the NBA. Top sportsbook and DFS plays coming up next.
Welcome back to The Sweat, final block of the show. It is time to roll with DraftKings contributor Gary Thorne and RotoWire's Nick Whalen. Fellas, 5-game slate tonight in the NBA. So we're going to roll through these. Gary, you're going to give your top DFS plays. Nick, you're going to give your top sportsbook plays. So let's roll through. Rematch of the NBA Finals, all right? Golden State, Boston, going down here in Boston. Gary, top DFS play in this one.
Yeah, with Jaylen Brown seemingly back in the mix tonight for the Celtics, there's not like an obvious source of value here. These are two pretty healthy teams. I know Golden State's got some injuries on the fringes. So I think the guy who's probably most mispriced is Klay Thompson. He's just $7,200. Thompson isn't someone who necessarily gives you amazing production in any category aside from points, but he's been filling it up as of late. He's got at least 40 DraftKings points in 6 of his last 8 games. In January, he's averaging 31 points per game, shooting 46% from 3 with a 31% usage rate. I think if you can ever get a player for less than 9K who's even flirting with a 30% usage rate, you generally have to consider it. So I think Thompson doesn't have the highest ceiling in the world because he's never going to give you the assists or the rebounds, but the way he's scoring right now, I think he's a little underpriced.
Nick, what's a bet you like from this game here? We know Golden State's away game struggles.
Yes, we do. NBA by far 5-16 ATS on the road. They are just three in as a road dog this season. Meanwhile, Boston 13-9 ATS. And I like the Celtics tonight, guys. Especially if Jay plays, as Gary alluded to. He's technically questionable. I would say it's in the right direction. He did put it in practice on Wednesday, which is usually indicative player coming back, but you never know. So make sure you get coached on that before locking anything in. But if Jaylen Brown plays, Celtics -6.5, 8-2 straight up in their last 10 games. I think they want to avenge that really ugly loss at Golden State a month and a half ago. Golden State still kind of figuring things out since Steph Curry. They look great at the Alamo Dome. The Spurs over the weekend. Not really sure there's a lot of takeaways there. The Spurs are one of the worst defenses in NBA history. I think we get a little bit of a correction here for Golden State, so I'm on the Celtics.
All right, of the rest of the slate, just take a look at the whole thing, buddy. Who's the very best DFS play tonight, Garion?
Well, not to be too basic, but I think it's Joel Embiid. I mean, there really isn't like just crazy set in stone DFS star power on this slate. There's a lot of guys who play in systems where they sort of share the load. Obviously Jason Tatum, we have to factor in the Jaylen Brown sort of situation with him. So that just leaves Embiid as like the safest big name option on the board. And when you look at this matchup, it's pretty enticing. Portland over their last 5 games has a defensive rating above 120. So they've been pretty bad stopping teams from scoring points, which is a problem against someone like Joel Embiid. And then you look at the recent success that centers have had against Portland. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is going to put up an amazing line against anybody, but he had a triple-double secured in the third quarter when he played the Trailblazers recently, finished that game with 36, 12, and 10. And then the game before that, Christian Wood put up 23 and 16 against the Trailblazers. So Joel Embiid should be in store for a really big night tonight. I think he pays off this big price tag.
Nick, your favorite player prop in the 4 games besides Warriors Celtics?
So I'll throw out a couple quick ones. I like Anthony Edwards over 23 tonight against the Raptors. We kind of know the story with Minnesota at this point. He's kind of the last man standing. I don't think Rudy Gobert ends up playing in this game. Not that it really affects the scoring load all that much, but this is Anthony Edwards' team for the time being. In Toronto, they're kind of in no man's land right now. I think Toronto and Minnesota kind of equal teams in a lot of ways. So interested to see how that plays out. A little under radar one here. Ayo Dosunmu over 8.5 points, and I like this because it's at plus money, plus 100 over at the DK Sportsbook. He's gone over in 8 of the 15. He had a 5-game stretch where he was going over every single night. Obviously, it's a little dicey playing role props. It's a low number. He is starting. He's playing a ton of minutes every night. This is the type of matchup in the Detroit Pistons defenses in the league. This could be one of those Nagos in the 120s, in the 130s. And he was the type of guy that even if this is a blowout, he's playing in the second half. So attacking that with plus money.
All right, Gary, and real quick, where are we looking for DFS value tonight?
Nick mentioned the Timberwolves and the injury struggles they have right now. Slow-mo, Kyle Anderson's been the guy to step up as of late. Almost dropped his 2nd consecutive triple-double in last night's game. Just doing everything right now for Minnesota. He's too cheap at 5.6.
All right, Nick, value on the sports book, plus money bet you like. Bring us home.
Going with another player prop, Jason Tatum over 4.5 assists. You're getting that at plus 105 at the DraftKings book. He's gone over in his 3 as well as 5 of his last 7. Warriors are allowing nearly 27 assists per game. And that's 5th in the NBA behind basically bad teams. Over the last month, Tatum is at nearly 5 assists per game. That's up from the first half of the season. Warriors also near the top of the league in fields per game allowed opponents. So the answers are going to be there for Jason Tatum. He can still have a big scoring night and also get to 5 or 6 assists. I think this number could easily be a point higher. So over 4.5 assists for Jason Tatum.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. That is a show, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock Eastern time. And a happy birthday to our friend Samir behind the camera.
Happy birthday, Samir!
We love you, Samir. Thanks. Love you too.